Sir, ready?
Yes, sir. Let's start, sir.
Okay. എല്ലാവർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. ഞാൻ ഡോക്ടർ അബ്ദുൽ ഗഫൂർ, താനൂർ ഗവൺമെന്റ് കോളേജിലെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ ഇൻചാർജ് ആൻഡ് IQAC കോർഡിനേറ്റർ. താനൂർ ഗവൺമെന്റ് കോളേജിലെ IQACയുടെ ആഭിമുഖ്യത്തിൽ നടത്തുന്ന വെബിനാർ പരമ്പരയിലെ ഒന്നാമത്തെ വെബിനാറാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇന്ന് നമ്മൾ നാഷണൽ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ പോളിസിയെ സംബന്ധിച്ചാണ് ചർച്ച നടത്താൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാവുന്നതുപോലെ ഒരു രാജ്യത്തിൻ്റെ ഭാഗതയെ നിർണ്ണയിക്കുന്നത് അവിടുത്തെ അഭ്യസ്തവിദ്യരായ ജനതയാണ് എന്ന് നമുക്കറിയാം. വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിന് ഒരു രാജ്യത്തിൻ്റെ ഭാഗതയെ നിർണ്ണയിക്കുന്നതിനുള്ള പങ്ക് എത്രമാത്രം വലുതാണ് എന്ന് നമുക്ക് അറിയാവുന്ന സംഗതിയാണ്. ഇതിനു മുമ്പ് നമുക്ക് ഒരു നാഷണൽ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ പോളിസി ഉണ്ടായത് 1986-ലാണ്. 86-ലെ നാഷണൽ പോളിസി ഓൺ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ എന്ന് നാഷണൽ പോളിസി ഓൺ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ 1986 എന്ന് അറിയപ്പെടുന്ന വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയം. അപ്പോൾ 34 വർഷങ്ങൾക്ക് ശേഷമാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ വീണ്ടും ഒരു പുതിയ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയം ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ അത് സ്വാഭാവികമായും അതിൽ അനേകം മാറ്റങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാകും എന്ന് നമുക്ക് പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കാവുന്നതാണ്. കാരണം ഇത്രയും കാലം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, ഈ കഴിഞ്ഞ 34 വർഷങ്ങൾ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ ലോക രംഗത്ത് തന്നെ എല്ലാ മേഖലയിലും വളരെയേറെ മാറ്റങ്ങൾക്ക് സാക്ഷ്യം വഹിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള വർഷങ്ങളാണ്. അപ്പോൾ സ്വാഭാവികമായും നമ്മുടെ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ രംഗത്ത്, നമ്മുടെ ജീവിത രംഗത്ത് അതിനനുസരിച്ച് കാതലായ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ സംഭവിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഒരു ഘട്ടത്തിൽ ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കുന്ന വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയം നമ്മൾ കാര്യമായി അത് ചർച്ചയ്ക്ക് വിധേയമാക്കേണ്ടതുണ്ട് എന്നതിൽ എതിരഭിപ്രായം ഉണ്ടാകാൻ സാധ്യതയില്ല. ഈ ഒരു അവസരത്തിലാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു വെബിനാർ ഇവിടെ സംഘടിപ്പിക്കാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്നത്. നമുക്കറിയാം, 2020 ജൂലൈ 29 കേന്ദ്ര ക്യാബിനറ്റ് പാസാക്കിയ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയം ആണ് നാഷണൽ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ പോളിസി 2020 എന്ന് അറിയപ്പെടുന്നത്. ഇത് ഇന്ത്യയിലെ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ രംഗത്തെ പ്രാഥമിക തലം മുതൽ ഉന്നത വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ രംഗം വരെയുള്ള എല്ലാ മേഖലയിലും സമഗ്രമായ അഴിച്ചുപണി നടത്തുന്ന 1986-ലെ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയത്തെ സമൂലം പരിഷ്കരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയം ആണ് ഇപ്പോൾ അവതരിപ്പിക്കപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുള്ളത്. അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് പല കോണുകളിൽ നിന്നും വിമർശനങ്ങളും ഉയരുന്നുണ്ട് എന്ന് നമുക്കറിയാം. അത് സ്വാഭാവികമാണ്. ഇന്ത്യയെ പോലെയുള്ള ഒരു ജനാധിപത്യ രാജ്യത്ത് ജനാധിപത്യത്തിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനം തന്നെ വിമർശനം ആണ്, വിമർശിക്കാനുള്ള അവകാശം ആണ്. അപ്പൊ ആ നിലയ്ക്ക് ഏതൊരു പുതിയ പോളിസി വരുമ്പോഴും, ഒരു പുതിയ നയം കൊണ്ടുവരുമ്പോൾ സ്വാഭാവികമായും അത് വിമർശിക്കപ്പെടും എന്നുള്ളത് നമുക്ക് ഉറപ്പാണ്. എങ്കിലും അതിനെ വസ്തുനിഷ്ഠമായി നമ്മൾ ചർച്ചയ്ക്ക് വിധേയമാക്കി അതിന്റെ നെല്ലും പതിരും വേർതിരിക്കുന്നതിനുള്ള ഒരു ബാധ്യത നമുക്ക് ഉന്നത വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ രംഗത്ത് പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന ഏവർക്കും ഉണ്ട് എന്നാണ് ഞാൻ മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നത്. മാത്രമല്ല, അതിലെ വസ്തുതകൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കുക എന്നുള്ളത് വളരെ പ്രധാനം. നമ്മൾ പല കോണുകളിൽ നിന്നുള്ള വിമർശനങ്ങൾ കേൾക്കുക മാത്രമല്ല, എന്താണ് ഈ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയം മുന്നോട്ട് വയ്ക്കുന്നത് എന്നത് വളരെ കൃത്യമായി നമ്മൾ ആദ്യം മനസ്സിലാക്കേണ്ടതുണ്ട്. അതിന് നമുക്ക് ഈ വെബിനാർ നമുക്ക് ഏവർക്കും ഉപകരിക്കും എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ ഇപ്പൊ നമുക്കറിയാം, പുതിയ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയത്തിൽ ഇതുവരെ നിലവിലുണ്ടായിരുന്ന നമ്മുടെ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സമ്പ്രദായത്തെ അടിമുടി പരിഷ്കരിക്കുകയാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ നിലവിൽ 10+2 എന്ന രീതിയിലാണ് പ്രാഥമിക വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം, സ്കൂൾ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത് എങ്കിൽ ഇനി മുതൽ അത് 5+3+3+4 എന്ന നിലയിൽ 15 വർഷത്തെ പദ്ധതിയായിട്ടാണ് പുതിയ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയം വിഭാവനം ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ആ രീതിയിൽ അത് മാത്രമല്ല, തുടർന്ന് അങ്ങോട്ട് ഹയർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ മേഖലയിലും കാതലായ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ വരുന്നുണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ 3 ഇയർ ഡിഗ്രി പ്രോഗ്രാംസ്, അത് ഇതുവരെയുള്ള അവസ്ഥ അനുസരിച്ച് നമുക്ക് 3 വർഷത്തെ കോഴ്സ് കഴിഞ്ഞ് കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് പരീക്ഷ പാസ്സായാൽ മാത്രമേ നമുക്ക് ഡിഗ്രി കിട്ടുമായിരുന്നുള്ളൂ എന്ന അവസ്ഥയിൽ നിന്ന് മാറിയിട്ട് 1 വർഷത്തെ പഠനം പൂർത്തിയാക്കുന്ന ആളുകൾക്ക് സർട്ടിഫിക്കറ്റും, 2 വർഷത്തെ പഠനം പൂർത്തിയാക്കുന്നവർക്ക് ഡിപ്ലോമയും, 3 വർഷത്തെ പഠനം പൂർത്തിയാക്കുന്നവർക്ക് ഡിഗ്രിയും കൊടുക്കുന്ന തരത്തിൽ ആ രീതിയിലേക്ക് വളരെ ഫ്ലെക്സിബിൾ ആണ് പുതിയ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ നയത്തിന്റെ ഘടന എന്നാണ് മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നത്. ഈ മേഖലകളിലെല്ലാം നമ്മൾ കുറെ കൂടി ആഴത്തിൽ നമ്മളതെല്ലാം മനസ്സിലാക്കേണ്ടതുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ ഇതിന് ഇന്നത്തെ വെബിനാർ നമുക്ക് ഇതിനെല്ലാം ഉപകരിക്കും എന്ന് പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കും. ഇന്നത്തെ നമ്മുടെ ഈ വിഷയം അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നത് ഞങ്ങളുടെ കോളേജിലെ താനൂർ ഗവൺമെന്റ് ആർട്സ് ആൻഡ് സയൻസ് കോളേജിലെ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് വിഭാഗം അധ്യാപകൻ ശ്രീ ഡാനിഷ് നിസാർ ആണ്. അദ്ദേഹം ഈ കാര്യം വളരെ നന്നായി പഠിച്ച് മനസ്സിലാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരാളാണ് എന്നാണ് ഞാൻ മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ വിഷയം അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിന് ഞാൻ അതിനു മുമ്പായിട്ട് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ഒരു കർത്തവ്യം ഈ വെബിനാറിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്ന ഏവരെയും ഇതിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. ആദ്യമായി ഞാൻ ഡാനിഷ് സാറിനെ ഈ യോഗത്തിലേക്ക്, ഈ വെബിനാറിലേക്ക് സന്തോഷപൂർവ്വം സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. അതോടൊപ്പം ഈ വെബിനാറിൽ പങ്കെടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന അധ്യാപകർ, വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾ, എൻ്റെ സഹപ്രവർത്തകർ, മറ്റ് കോളേജുകളിൽ നിന്നൊക്കെയുള്ള അധ്യാപകരെയും എല്ലാ സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെയും സന്തോഷപൂർവ്വം ഈ വെബിനാറിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഈ വെബിനാർ നമ്മൾ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത് ഒരു 3/4 മണിക്കൂർ നേരത്തെ, 45 മിനിറ്റ് നേരത്തെ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ, അതിനുശേഷം അതിനെ അധികരിച്ചുകൊണ്ടുള്ള ചർച്ചയുമാണ് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവരും ചർച്ചയിൽ സജീവമായി പങ്കെടുക്കണം എന്ന് അഭ്യർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. നമുക്ക് ചോദിക്കാനുള്ള ചോദ്യങ്ങൾ ഇവിടെ ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സിൽ നേരത്തെ തന്നെ ടൈപ്പ് ചെയ്തിടുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നന്നായിരിക്കും. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ കഴിഞ്ഞതിന് ശേഷം അത് നേരിട്ട് അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനും കുഴപ്പമില്ല, ചോദിക്കുന്നതിനും പ്രശ്നമില്ല. അപ്പൊ ഇങ്ങനെ ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സിൽ ഇടുന്ന ചോദ്യങ്ങൾക്ക് മറുപടി അവസാനം പറയുന്നതായിരിക്കും. ഈ രീതിയിലാണ് നമ്മൾ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ എന്തായിരുന്നാലും ഇവിടെ വന്നു ചേർന്നിട്ടുള്ള ഈ വെബിനാറിൽ പങ്കെടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഏവരെയും ഹൃദയപൂർവ്വം സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഈ വിഷയം അവതരിപ്പിച്ച് സംസാരിക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി ഡാനിഷ് സാറിനെ സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം ക്ഷണിക്കും.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Gopur, sir. It's my privilege. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, sir.
Right. It's my privilege to speak in front of an audience which spans almost the entire state, and also maybe people from other countries too watching. I don't know how far this webinar would be efficient, but I'll try to make it as informative as possible. Right. So we are all here to discuss about national educational policy, which actually was passed by the Union Cabinet on July 29, 2020. And there has been many kind of criticism, just like Gopur sir had mentioned. There has been many criticism with the passing of the policy document, as well as the recommendation that has been suggested. But sidelining all those criticism aside, we can just look into the document. I think the document has got, it's a wonderful visionary document as such. It's a wonderful visionary document. But before we get into the document, I would like to suggest a theoretical position that was put forth by Michel Foucault, wherein he says that power is the knowledge system, and it's also reversed, or like knowledge is also the power system, right? Power and knowledge go hand in hand. So when we look at the national education policy, it is also an institutional ratification of the present socio-political and economic system of the country, right? So there are certain limitations. At the same time, there is a lot of plus points that we can follow to a great extent. talking about the national education policy. Before the independence, also we had education policies, especially the notorious Macaulay's Minutes on Education is considered to be a policy that brought about English education to the country, or what is called the modern education system of India. In that policy, Macaulay actually makes a statement. He says that the whole of Sanskrit and Arabic literature, when combined together, would be not enough to fill one shelf of a European library. A similar kind of comment is also seen in the present NEP document, but which is quite the opposite of that thought, right? He actually said in 1835, and it was institutional ratified because it was during the British government that he made the statement, and this statement was considered to be a valid statement. The discourse was considered to be valid, and hence we are all a part of that particular system. And that is the case. Like when you get into the educational policy making, and policy documents are all a kind of documents that is associated with the socio-political economic system of that particular country. So I would like to go for a presentation of the entire this thing topic. I think I would be presenting my presentation on screen right now. Okay. Right. Right. I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Right. So the presentation that it is just a kind of the entire summary of what is, or entire analysis of the national education policy as such. We see that the policy is actually a kind of document wherein it was actually put forth by Dr. Kasturi Rangan, the chief ISRO chief, former ISRO chief, and former chancellor of JNU. He, along with the 9-member team, actually proposed this national education policy. But the thing that they have stressed on is that it is completely brand new document. But on the other hand, I would like to say that the almost 70% of the content inside the document is actually a copy of the previous. We are again returning back to the past. Most probably that would be the precise statement to say. Although there are certain brand new innovative programs that has been discussed in this national education policy, but still some of the factors, especially the factors that we have had a lot of controversy upon, are basically things that is associated with the previous policy. So this education policy was actually one of the agenda of the Bharatiya Janata Party manifesto during the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, and it was actually passed on in 2020. Before that, there was a kind of education policy committee which was headed by TSR Subramanian. So TSR Subramanian was the former head of the Education Policy Committee, and in that report, which was submitted in 2017, it was actually trashed into the bin, saying that it was just a mere repetition of the previous policy. the earlier document, just before this got published, the earlier document that was put forth by T.S.R. Subramanian, the cabinet secretary, was actually trashed to the bin, saying that it was just a document that is meant purely to be thrown off, because it is just a repetition of the previous two policies. So setting that things aside, this has got contradictions. This statement has got contradiction when you come and analyze this document also. We'll just go into that document in detail. Right. So my presentation is basically divided into three parts. As you know, the present document is a 64-page document that is put forth in the public domain of MHRD. It is a summarized version of the rough draft that was drafted maybe maybe 10 to 11 months earlier, wherein more than 2 lakh suggestions came. 2 lakh plus suggestions came from different parts of the country, and almost all suggestions were not considered to a great extent, except a few. Some of the major suggestions belong to the multilingual system that was proposed by the document. So the whole document is actually divided into 4. Part 1, which goes with school education, part 2, which goes with higher education, part 3, which goes with the professional education, and part 4, which goes with the implementation of the entire process system of education. So in this document, in this presentation, I would be focusing on these 3 major areas which cover almost the entire document as such. I'll be discussing the major scopes and challenges that has been discussed almost in the document. So let us just get into the general introduction of the document. There is a kind of misconception regarding the policy document. It is just a visionary framework. It is not a legal document. Even though the Parliament has passed the document, it is not yet to be followed as such. No document, no policy document is a legal document. That is the first point that I would like to make here. So NEP 2020 that has been released is just a vision framework, vision of the education system. Right. It is the 3rd policy after independence. To be precise, it can be called the 4th, because in between 1992, I think the 1986 policy was amended to a slight extent. So it is a 3rd policy after independence, and the body was constituted, as I told you, was constituted by Dr. Kasturi Rangan, and it constituted a 9-member team. It was put forth twice. The first one was rejected, saying that it is just a repetition of the earlier policy. The second one is accepted as extremely innovative. Let's see how innovative the document is altogether. That is Kasturi Rangan, Dr. Kasturi Rangan. Now, coming to the history of education policy in India. So when you get back to the what prompted the country to get into the educational policy system is actually date back to 1964, when a Congress MP who's called Siddheshwar Prasad actually criticized the then government of India. It is also a Congress government. It was led by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. They criticized the then government of India, and it was during that time that the 17-member team was organized, which was headed by Dr. D.S. Kothari, who was the first UGC chairman, and he proposed the commission report in 1968. The second education policy was actually headed by the Gandhian social academic activist Sri Acharya Ramurthy sir, and he was the one who actually brought in a kind of community engagement in education. Right, before that we had the UGC formation. So the education policy of India was basically a kind of a socialist policy before 1964. It was founded by the Nehruvian system of socialist education system, and it was his thought that we actually see in IITs or NITs or different kinds of specialized institutions throughout. Even UGC is actually a kind of commission that was put forth by Nehruvian socialist philosophy. So, but still, 1986, during Rajiv Gandhi's prime ministership, the educational policy was declared, and in that policy we had the inclusion of the socially economic and disadvantaged group of people, to be precise. Right, there is a lot of stress given to the minority section in that particular document, along with developing a kind of digital infrastructure towards education system, which was actually propounded in 1992 under the prime ministership of Narasimha Rao, that is Sri Acharya Ramurthy. Sorry. Now coming to this document, a vision of NEP 2020. The present statement has been underlined and bolded, but that is not there in the document. I just bolded it because we need to focus on the statement. Right, the national education policy envisions an education system that is rooted in Indian ethos. That contributes directly to transforming India, that is Bharat, sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing equity, quality education to all, and thereby making India a global knowledge superpower. So very good. The document is absolutely brilliant in the use of language. In the sense that it hasn't touched most controversial areas to a great extent by using lots of adjectives, by using lots of ornamental phrases. Right. So deep-rootedness in Indian ethos Indianness is something that you keep on seeing in this particular document. Now, what is Indianness? That is a question that needs to be again rethought over. Right? What is Indianness, to be precise? Indianness keeps on changing as days progress. Right now, that is the situation. But keeping aside, what is Indianness is a question that needs to be answered. Then we have to be focused on equitable. They focus on equitable. They focus on the nation as the super powerhouse. That's all very good thing. That's a very good vision with regard to the education system. The present vision of the NEP is absolutely brilliant. Brilliant in the sense that it doesn't talk about any controversies, though many ambiguities can be risen from different aspects, right? So looking at the document at a surface level, it's purely good, it's purely brilliant, right? Now the major part of the document actually involves this section, school education. I don't know whether we are actually involved in school education. The majority of the participants most probably would be under higher education system, but school education is the part that is stressed in NEP 2020, right? So these are the components that has been listed. You can just get into the document as such, and the major component that has been put forth is the 5+3+3+4 system, which includes education, mainstream education from the age of 3 to 18. Earlier it was from 6 to 18, right? Earlier it was just from 6 to 18. Now it is from 3 to 18. 3 to 6 is also 3 to 6 is added actually. So that is a very good point. Early childhood care and education. That's a system that's globally accepted, globally psychologically accepted system is early childhood care and education. When you have early childhood care and education, the progress of the country is quite significantly remarkable, right? So that is one of the most highlighting feature or brand new, what you call the innovative aspect of the present educational policy, right? So these are the preparatory stage. We have the foundational stage, then we have the preparatory stage, then you have the middle stage and the secondary stage. And when you come to the middle stage, it becomes quite flexible in nature, right? When a student reaches the middle stage, it becomes quite flexible in nature, wherein he can choose his own subjects, wherein he can go on and opt for whatever he wishes to opt like thing, right? So this is the prospect that I was talking about, early childhood care and education. It is for the first time that the early childhood care and education system is mentioned under the mainstream education. Education, there is also recommendation. There is no direct recommendation, but we can assume that they also have tried to recommend that right to education would be from 3 rather than from 4 to 14, which is quite traditional right now, maybe 10 to 12 years old. So if you get back 3 to what, suppose you say 14, then that would be quite a remarkable achievement that we can come up with. Then the third point is that the present policy actually stresses on breakfast along with midday meals. There are all limitations to it, right? Let's look at the plus points first. Let's look at the plus point, then we will be discussing the negative points too. Right, breakfast along with midday meals. That's also a very brilliant idea. Foundation literacy and numeracy would be given at a very early stage. That is, from the foundation stage itself, you have the foundation literacy and numeracy. But what is the challenge that we are facing? The only 2 models that is proposed by the National Education Policy 2020 is the already existing model of Anganwadi and pre-primary school. There is no special model for early childhood care and education that is propounded by the policy makers. Rather, they are just getting on with the pre-existing norms of Anganwadi and pre-primary. These 2 institutions are basically contradictory in nature, contradictory in many sense. For example, Anganwadi doesn't operate in the same manner as a pre-primary institution operates in our country. There are lots of differences related to the faculty, related to the infrastructure, related to the facilities that is being provided, but none of these things have been discussed in that particular document. Only a vague idea is put forth in the document concerning teachers in this pre-primary setup. So they have talked about the exams, they have talked about different courses that can be provided. But the document doesn't focus on a prescribed kind of planning or procedural pattern in implementing early childhood care and education in the model that they have suggested. So that is quite a big challenge that we need to address. Now, concerning school education, the highest priority to the education system will be to achieve universal foundation literacy, which was established, which was actually, when you look at the gross enrollment ratio in primary school, is almost 100% in the country, right? And higher education, when you come to higher education, it is just 24%, 26% to be in the data, statistical data. So the next point is pupil-teacher ratio will be 30:1 and 25:1 in rural areas. I don't know how far this is going to be possible, right? But that is the present kind of ratio that should be there. Right, we should not have more than 30 students engaging in a class with one teacher, right? And the third point is digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing, that is Diksha, would be established. That's also a very good point, right? Today we are all into online learning system. Online learning system, we need this. These are things. Online education system was introduced by the 1986 education policy. It is nothing new as such, but still, when the 1986 education policy was actually released, it was just the beginning of the internet age in India. So we were not aware of the disadvantage or the threat behind the internet. But still, at the present scenario, we are at the verge of the artificial intelligence age. We don't know what is actually artificial intelligence, but we are just focusing on that particular thing. So Diksha, the online platform or the online knowledge system, is encouraged for school education. That's a very good thing. medium of instruction at pre-primary or primary would be in mother tongue or regional language. It's not would be, it is actually wherever possible. I'd like to correct that. It is wherever possible. The document says wherever possible you need to have mother tongue instruction. Now that is not a new thing. The most number of controversies that emerged in the document was concerning the use of mother tongue as the medium of instruction. But unfortunately, the medium of instruction in the pre-primary or the primary setup should be mother tongue, because it is the only way wherein which the cognitive capability of a learner expands, right? Even though that is suggested in all the documents, whether you take 1968 document, whether you take 1986 document, whether you take 1992 or the present document, everywhere it is stated like that. But unfortunately, there is a mafia that's going on, wherein it doesn't happen as such. The regional language doesn't come into the medium of instruction to a great extent. It empowers students through flexibility in course choice. That I had already mentioned. By the middle class, you have the flexibility of courses there, right? So introduction of contemporary subjects also is a very innovative idea. Artificial intelligence, coding, scratch coding, design thinking, global citizenship education, all will be provided at all school levels. That's absolutely brilliant, right? But setting aside all these things, the document doesn't focus on though it talks about the disadvantaged group. There are learning disability students also. It doesn't talk too much about learning disabilities as such, even though it addresses to a certain extent. Specialist schools should be provided, all these things. But what about them into this contemporary modern education system? That's a question that needs to be addressed. Right. Every student will take a fun course during grade 6 to 8. So there's a vocational training. Then there is the progress report, would be multi-dimensional 360-degree progress report, wherein the student gets a feedback from the peer groups as well as the teachers as well as the parents. There's no red marking. Regarding the evaluation system, that's also a problem that we need to address. From 2003, we had the continuous and comprehensive evaluating system. But unfortunately, we still follow the traditional method of evaluating system. We still follow the internal marks. We focus on the internal marks. We focus on the students' exam results. Even right now, even if the practice is right on, unfortunately, we do that. So the first thing is that rather than just by making such bold statements, the implementation factor should be a prime thing to be considered. How would the teachers be trained like thing? Teachers training, that's a question that needs to be addressed in evaluation, in the conduct of classes. Students would be given choice of attending board exams twice, and regarding board examinations also, it is actually saying it's a funny thing that has been said by exams. They say that the exams would be made easy. How can the exams be made easy? Exams are actually things that needs to be addressing the overall development or overall capability of that particular person. How can it be considered to be easy? Rather than you have to have that particular training process, you have to train the teachers and the learning communities to get into that particular aspect of teaching learning process. Right, examination, making easy examinations, creating board exam. That's again going back to the past, the traditional method. Even though it is quite a scope, I have put it in the scope only of the fact that the students get 2 chances for writing the exam. Promotion and salary increases will not occur in the basis of seniority. That's a very good move. That's a very good move on one sense, that seniority would not be considered, even though seniority should be considered. But still, as we grow older, we tend to become lazy. That is the general tendency of the teaching learning community. I'm sorry to say that, but still, as we get older, as we move on, in life, we tend to become lazy. So that should not be counted. You should have energy right from the start till the end. Right. So incentives based on performance. That's a very good idea. Special short local teacher programs would be conducted. Right. These are all the challenges. A rigid centralization of education system, whether it be a school education system or the higher education system, it is rigidly centralized. Even though they talk about semi-autonomous colleges, semi-autonomous institutions of schools, school clusters, they are still focused on rigid education system. Dropout rates are being discussed, but no mention about how to curtail those dropout rates, even though it is all vague in that document, right, regarding a dropout system, especially in the tribal areas, in the scheduled caste, scheduled tribal areas. It is all a kind of vague system, right? Multilingualism, Sanskrit learning is stressed in great detail. Again, a part of controversy that is still there. Sanskrit, why is Sanskrit so much stressed in the document? But let me remind you that the 1968 policy document also stresses on Sanskrit education. Right. The problem with the present policy document is that they focus on classical Sanskrit. Again, a problematic issue. They focus on classical Sanskrit being implemented in education system with the prime focus of translation. That's good idea. That's a good ideology. But what is the purpose of learning classical Sanskrit or classic Sanskrit in the contemporary world? That is also a problematic situation. Right. Knowledge of India will include knowledge from ancient India and its contribution to modern India. Contradictory statement. So ancient India has evolved into modern India. So uh, there's a contradiction there. What about the middle part? What about the medieval India? There is no mention about the medieval Indian education system. Maybe because it focused on a religious education, to be honest, right? The prime focus is on ancient India, and ancient India we have very few documents which is existing right now. Um, all curriculum and pedagogy will be completely redesigned, focusing on the Indianness and the local context. These are the words that has been exactly copied from the document. So again, Indianness. What is Indianness? So whatever we have been learning is not Indian, to be precise. So that's also a problematic statement that the document actually makes. What is the Indianness or the local context that they are talking of? They are going to revamp the entire curriculum. Are we going to revamp it? That's a problem. Not they. It's actually a combined effort, right? The authorities, the board of studies, the social curriculum framework people, policy makers, all these people. Education is in the concurrent list, right? Both the state and the center has equal stand for making educational laws, right? Then every student will take a fun course. That fun course thing is both a scope as well as a challenge. You know why? Because there is a chance of in the American system of education, basically the entire education policy is concerted on the American educational policy, which is in fact modeled on the German educational method of this thing. So it's a kind of American plus German plus Korean form of educational system. They have put aside, they have gathered some points from these educational system, and they have put up in this particular document. So this thing regarding the fun course, maybe 10 days without bags. That is a phrase that they are using. 10 days without bag is a good program. Vocational training is good, but what about the body to govern this particular kind of situation? There is no mention about that. So who's going to govern this particular instinct? So there is a tendency that they would be exploited. Students can be exploited to a great extent when they get into vocational training, first-hand experience itself, right? So exploitation can occur, but setting aside the negative impact, if you just focus on the positive thing, then it's fine. But we need to have a regulatory system. Even though I talk about a rigid centralization, we need to have a fixed regulatory system for this particular purpose, because all the other countries do have a regulatory system for checking out their internship programs in education. Even though talking about easing exam procedures, that's again a repeated thing. Then talks about NTA. NTA is the central testing agency. So after you write your board exam, you again appear for another entrance exam to get into college. That's quite amusing to hear, right? So the instinct of board exam in itself is quite traditional. I don't know why the education policy makers actually focused on that. Even that. They have suggested that it would be from 3rd standard, 8th standard, and 12th standard, 10 plus 2, right? So many board exams would be there as such. So again, the evaluation process is not quite clearly defined. Again, the challenge is two statement. 5.11 says teacher has equal role in governance of school. 5.12 says teacher should not be involved in other activities apart from teaching. Should not be involved in non-teaching. Governance is a kind of non-teaching activity. So 2 points coincide there. There's a contradiction in that particular statement. Right, and teacher autonomy is discussed, but still it is kind of semi-autonomy that is being provided. Then we have the teacher training programs, B.Ed programs was encouraged. All teacher education system is encouraged, but we don't have that particular concept of what to do with the present teaching community as such. We have 85 lakh plus teachers right now in the country. What are we going to do with them? How are they going to be trained? These are not things that has been discussed. That needs to be provided as such, right? So concerning governance also, we have the same state education board department and all those stuff. It would be quite expanded. There's nothing much in detail as of the governance system of education, but it will be strict as such. Now coming to the higher education system, the last part, right? These are the components. I was just quick enough. Right, I don't know if I'm running away from time. Maybe I'll take 10 minutes. Gafur sir, is that okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. Right, okay. So regarding higher education, the main problems that we have in NEP 20, we have in the present education system. ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ സിസ്റ്റത്തിനെ കുറിച്ചാണ് പറയുന്നത്. We are focusing on the present education system. According to NEP, it is severely fragmented, less emphasis on development of cognitive skills and learning outcomes, rigid separation of discipline, limited access to socially economic disadvantaged group, limited teacher and institution autonomy, less emphasis on research, large affiliating universities. These are all a kind of deficiency in the present education system. Right, I have been into this higher education system for a decade or so, and I have seen, I have taught in, I haven't taught in the year-based system as such, but I think I have taught in the semester-based system. That's almost 10 to 12 years before that we had started semester system in Calicut University. And I also happened to participate in the Golden Jubilee celebration of Calicut University, which was hosted for the principals of the college. My principal in the institution that I had worked earlier wasn't, he could not go, so he just put he just assigned me to attend that particular program, and it was actually presided over by the Chancellor of Pondicherry, Vice Chancellor of Pondicherry University, J.N.K. Tareem. J.N.K. Tareem sir had actually said that choice-based semester system is not followed in the correct sense in any of the institutions in our country. That is true, and very much true when it comes to Calicut University also. We have the term choice-based semester system. Actually, it is the students who can choose their course programs, and we have to assign, we have to get we have to assign ourselves, and we need to guide them according to their needs. That is the intention behind that particular phrase. Choice-based semester system or curriculum under choice-based semester system means you get the students to have the choice, and you are supposed to teach them, or you are supposed to get into that particular course. Rather, each institution takes on their own electives, whether it be PG, whether it be UG. They have their own electives. First they choose their own electives, then they are forcing the students to learn that particular elective. So it doesn't make sense. We have been repeating this kind of error for quite a few years as such. There might be certain rare cases, right? A rigid separation of discipline, that's also a quite significant thing, but there are limitations to it also, right? So these are things that has been prevailing in the present education system, which they are concerned of, the education policy is concerned of. Now, what is the recommendation? Higher education institutions are transformed into multidisciplinary universities, degrees, granting autonomous colleges and higher education clusters, knowledge hubs. So three basic structures. One is clusters of colleges, higher education institution clusters, then is on semi-autonomous degree granting colleges, then you have the universities, multidisciplinary universities. That's a very good concept in the sense we don't have any affiliating system outside India. When you look at education system outside India, there is no affiliation system that is there. But there are still again problems that come up. We are slightly populous country. All these things come up, and we can arrange. For example, a particular district can be constituted as clusters of colleges. That is what they mean actually. So cluster treatment of colleges under one guidance or one management or one governance is what they actually mean. Supporting other HEIs, right? Higher education institution extension activities is being supported. That's also a very good thing. Institutions have the option to open distance learning courses. That is open distance learning courses. That's not provided for the institution base. Now it is provided under the university basis. Rather, if it comes to institutional basis, it will be really good to consider their economic progress. Everything would be good. Flexibility in curriculum, cover and engaging courses options will be an offer to students. Credit-based courses, yeah. Again, talking about the earlier thing that we had said, credit-based system should be implemented in the most proper manner. That should be actually taken in by the Board of Studies actually. University Board of Studies and academic council, senate members, all syndicate members should make sure that the present education system, the present university higher education system is focusing on that particular aspect of teaching learning process, right? A credit-based semester system, right? So they actually focus on academic bank of credit, wherein the student can learn at any institution. So in order to achieve that, we need to have a single unified framework or curriculum for universities. Kerala government had actually was actually planning to start off, at least in this state, a uniform kind of higher education system, maybe 2 to 3 years back, but it hasn't been implemented. I don't know what is the present situation as of right now. Experienced teachers can just comment on that, right? The degree programs, as Gafur sir had mentioned earlier, first year certificate program, second year diploma, third year bachelor's degree, fourth year 4-year degree programs are encouraged with research. Degree with research is actually encouraged here. So if you have completed 4-year degree program, you can attend 1-year master's program. That's a very good thing. A very good thing in the sense students actually drop out maybe after 1 year or maybe after 2 years, but that will not be counted as dropouts then if they have certificates in their hand. They actually complete a course, right? Courses are designed on 1-year models. That is a prime important thing. That is quite efficiently suggested here, dividing the course into yearly systems. What is the learning outcomes should all be clearly defined as such beforehand itself. after 1 year, what should be the learning outcomes, all these things. Right, master's program also 2 year or 1 year. There is no MPhil. Yeah, the MPhil. There are lots of controversies related to the discarding MPhil courses also. MPhil courses, on one hand, just focus on research methodologies. So what they're saying is you need to know research methodology when you're doing your master's. That's there in the education system outside India. So basically, they are actually tending to modernize education in some way or the other. That is the modernization aspect of education that they are coming up with. Right. Coming to internationalization. Yes. Is there any problem?
No, sir. You can continue.
Okay. Coming to the internationalization of education, they have actually focused on PPP partnership, public-private partnership programs, which is actually stated as philanthropic. Now, the word philanthropic has got different meanings right now. Right, philanthropic can mean exploitation also in the present context. That's a problematic term. So, in the name of philanthropy or in the name of trust, many unwanted things are happening right now. It's sad to say that, but India is considered to be Vishwa Guru. That's a very good concept, Vishwa Guru, wherein you have the pool of education institutions coming to India. But UNESCO reports that almost all the private universities that is established outside their concerned country are all substandards. They all provide substandard courses. So that is the thing. So regulation concerning this also should be considered to a great extent. There is no mention of that too in this particular document. There is no regulatory mention of the international education system, though they are saying that fee structures and all would be looked upon regarding all the institutions. There is no regulatory measures upon the setup of private universities in the country. And teacher education programs also, there's a great mention. And sadly to say, many teacher education institutions in the country are just selling certificate according to Justice J.S. Verma Commission in 2012. That is the case of a teacher education institution. That will also be focused on multidisciplinary institutions. Multidisciplinary institutions is a term that is continuously used in higher education system. There's a contradictory statement to that also. Right, that is concerning B.Ed. We don't need to focus on greatly. Related to the vocational, I don't know. I think I got the spelling wrong. Vocational education. There's a great focus, but the problem with vocational education is, for example, if you get into BVOC and if you want to go, and after that boy completes BVOC, he understands that his area is administrative. He needs to get into UPSC. So there is no scope for him to get into the Public Service Commission. But the present document says that if you do BVOC, you need to get into that stream. Unfortunately, the present education system, we see that whatever the students are studying, that is not the field that they are going in, and that is not the process where they are actually investing in their later life. Right? They actually turn away after the higher education system. People. That is why there is a kind of less amount of investment or less amount of economic growth in the country. We tend to go to US, we tend to go to Gulf, we tend to go to other countries to work because they just go and opt other forms of career which they aren't offered. Even though they talk about South Korea, German education and all related to vocational education system, there is a quite tremendous decrease in vocational education. I think they haven't researched upon that in a great extent. So regarding research, the main focus is on National Research Foundation. The National Research Foundation acts as a regulatory board. That's quite problematic in some sense in the sense regarding the autonomy of teachers or researchers, research scholars. When you have a rigid centralized thing called National Research Foundation, apart from the AICTE or apart from the other funding agencies. Other funding agencies are not dissolved here. We have other funding agencies, and these other funding agencies are again supervised by NRF. That is the primary concern of research innovation. It is done due to avoid duplication. I don't know whether it would avoid duplication or rather it would be promoting a kind of centered, a particular centered kind of research system in the country. God knows that's a thing that needs to be discussed again. NRF, that is rigid. Yeah, right. So this is the educational governance system, Higher Education Commission. That was actually headed by the Prime Minister of India at first. One more thing, the Ministry of Human Resource and Development would be now called the Education Ministry. That was there earlier. It is not a new thing. It was there earlier, before 1986. And we see that the Higher Education Commission of India was actually headed by the Prime Minister. That was there written in the rough draft. But unfortunately, there were huge suggestions that came up from the public, and ultimately the head was retained by the Educational Minister of the country, currently Javadekar. Right. So it is all a part of the power and knowledge system that we had talked of in the starting of this presentation, higher education system. So basically 4 vertical pillars: the National Higher Education Regulatory Council, which would be looking after all the higher education system apart from legal and medicine. Then you have the National Accreditation Council, just like you have UGC NAC here. Then you have Higher Education Grants Council, that is providing funding. And you have General Education Council, which focuses on other source bodies of education, higher education. Right. This first point is quite innovative. Promoting Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation. So when a person takes on translation studies, there's no translation studies provided in any universities at present in India. Translation studies are actually combined with other studies, and there is no specialization to it. So Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation would be established is a very good point, so that we can get into that access, basically. Right. Online and digital education, again discussed earlier. Equity is discussed, but not to a specific context. We haven't discussed about each and every minority group in special category, although we have discussed about women, we have discussed about SC/ST, but at the general context, right? All standalone institutions would be turned into multidisciplinary. That's also a very problematic statement. Take, for example, London School of Economics or Berkeley School of Music. These are all standalone institutes. You cannot imagine kind of theater studies going on in Delhi IIMS, or you cannot imagine the opposite in the Film Institute of India, where you're going for medicine. So the providing multidisciplinary institution is quite problematic. That statement is quite problematic. Rather, you should encourage multidisciplinary institutions, and you should also establish standalone institutions which has got its own specialization. That should be the intention actually of the education system policy. That is quite ambiguous. One of the most ambiguous statement in the document. Very less mention of physical education. Physical education, I don't know whether there will be any other document that would be released based on physical education as such, but unfortunately there is no mention of physical education in this. Right. Space given to ancient Indian. There you go. Ancient Indian culture, ancient Indian institutions called Nalanda, all these stuffs. 64 arts. I don't know what prompted them to write 64 arts. 64 arts is actually the different courses provided in Hindu art system. Hindu art system provides that is actually firstly stated in Vyasyana's Kama Sutra, right? Wherein it is a duty of a courtesan to perform the 64 arts. Which includes bedspreading, which includes singing, which includes dancing, which includes flute playing, which includes pottery making, ornaments, all these things. Right, that is the 64 arts that they have talked of. But in Nalanda, and we don't see that particular program of 64 arts in the institutions that has been mentioned. These are all residential universities, actually, residential universities wherein religious scriptures were also taught. That's also a point to be noted. So why do they model on these Indian institutions? Maybe in order to just say that it is multidisciplinary, then it's fine. But in order to say that it should be like this, that's problematic. To achieve all this, GDP should be 6%. For the past 60 years, we have been listening to this. GDP should be 6%, but unfortunately, it hasn't gone above 4%. Right. The last 2013 World Bank status indicated that we are at 3.8 presently. Right, 3.8% of GDP is being invested on education. According to World Bank indicator, $1 if you invest on education, you will get $20 in return. That is the estimate that is actually done. I don't know the commercial part. I think Shahir or maybe commerce teachers can elaborate on that. So GDP, how to attain this? That is not there. Implementation is very less discussed in this document. How do you implement this entire policy? Only God knows. They are just telling us, or the policy, or the academicians, or the school bodies, or the college body authorities to try to implement. But unless and until the financial sources come from the state and the central government and the philanthropic public funding happens, there is no scope for getting this particular kind of 6% GDP. One thing is that we need to make a law concerning. We have a fiscal deficit law. Shahir sir can explain maybe. Fiscal deficit law is there for India. Similarly, we can have a kind of GDP a law which focuses on the expenditure system of education in India. Right. I think that's all with my presentation. Yes.
Thank you, Danish,
Thank you
for your wonderful presentation. You made an excellent presentation within the time limit. I think it was brief as well as comprehensive. And thank you very much, sir. And it is time for discussion.
Thank you.
Participants can raise questions or make comments or anything you want to add to the paper.
Can I ask, sir?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, definitely.
First of all, let me congratulate you, Danish sir, for such an informative and comprehensive presentation. You have highlighted, in fact, all the pros and cons of the NEP. Anyway, my little query is like, what do they actually mean by multidisciplinary institutions? Like, I would just like to know what type of multidisciplinary concept they are putting forth. And then you have mentioned institutions will be having the option to run open distance learning. What type of institutions they are like? Are our colleges, aided colleges or autonomous, will be having the option of running open distance learning? And then the National Research Foundation, I have little doubt, like the autonomy of researchers will surely go. That's what I feel, because recently we have examples of topics being rejected, politics gaining an upper hand in choosing topics. And the language, the Prakrit, the other day Shamsu ma'am was telling, Prakrit, the language spoken between 500 BC and 500 AD, it was historically considered secondary even those days. So why are they emphasizing on such languages? I would like to know, sir.
Right. Thank you, Sophia, Miss. First of all, your first query is concerning. Could you just say the first query was it concerning multidisciplinary, right? multidisciplinary institutions are basically institutions which provide combined courses in the sense, just like we have, for example, English literature and comparative studies, or English literature and linguistics. That is a kind of multidisciplinary program like thing. So the process here, the problem here is that is quite efficient when it comes to engaging in more multidisciplinary institutions. But making all standalone institutes into multidisciplinary institutions is quite problematic. For example, in IITs are meant to encourage the technological aspect of the educational scenario. AIMS is meant to address the medical science research thing that's going on. But we cannot have multidisciplinary institute or standalone institutes converted into multidisciplinary institutes. That's quite very problematic. Multidisciplinary means like this. We need to have different courses combined together, focusing on different areas of interest. I think the present government has suggested some few multidisciplinary courses for the government colleges. Then the second question is concerning open distance learning. Before that, we need to make this thing clear in our mind. The NEP has suggested that there would not be any more aided colleges or many more government colleges like thing. It would be just three things. One is universities with multidisciplinary faculties. Then second is semi-autonomous degree granting colleges, and three is higher education clusters. So the open distance learning can be provided by these three kinds of institutions, right? So it is not just focusing on institutions plays a great part. Or if you have the cluster has got one governance body, and it is based on that governance body's initiative to open up distance learning facilities for the learners, open distance learning facilities for the learners, right? So I think that addresses the second question. So there is no concept of aided or government colleges. These three concepts are there. The last thing is related to research. Research, yes, you have said that thing rightly. That is a prime thing to be concerned, because if you centralize, if you talk about, they are actually using light but tight phrase for this particular kind of regulatory system that they are talking of. I don't know whether the phrase goes right, light but tight, but it is tight but tight again. Research autonomy is also a problematic thing. People don't get to research on the area of their interest. That would be again scrutinized, or a kind of political tendencies would come in. That's what I said. The whole system is actually based on the theory of power and knowledge system, which is correlated. So extensive regulatory system indicates autonomy. They also talk about autonomy. At the same time, they talk about a rigid centralization system. That's a questionable thing. That's a problematic thing. Yes, thank you. I think that I have answered the query.
Thank you, sir. This cluster system actually we had few years back, right?
Yes,
but
yes.
Was it a success? Like we see how the institutions with the good infrastructure, they shy away from sharing their resources. So what is the point in?
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. That is the thing that I have suggested. First, we need to educate. We need to have programs concerning the management system of these clusters. Then we need to think of applying it, right? Rather, we just apply it blindly. All of a sudden, it doesn't work out. We need to get into the pros and cons of this particular cluster system. We need to analyze it. We need to have a kind of market study. What do you call? Then only there would be a kind of, this education policy doesn't mean that all of a sudden the next year it keeps on changing. But with that target, we need to have effective programs. Till now, there isn't much programs that has been suggested. Right, cluster programs is a failure. Even the evaluation process is a failure. That was the thing I was talking of. Everything is a failure because it is just started off without knowing the real intention of that particular program. That is the thing.
Thank you, sir. And about the Prakrit language being reintroduced, what's the use of it? How do you feel it?
Yeah, I personally opined it earlier itself. Classical language, it is good, but for the contemporary system, I don't think it works well. It is good in the sense that we can get access to different unknown system of knowledge. Maybe that's what they say. I
Once again,
personally,
once again, a big thank you to all the IQAC team of Government Arts and Science College Tanur. Such a tremendous effort they have taken, and this webinar was very democratic. Like we could ask questions very freely. I feel obliged. Thank you.
Okay, Sophia Miss. You will have another chance to make a vote of thanks. Sophia Miss.
I have to say vote of thanks also. I didn't know.
Okay. Now I have a
are
question.
there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Danish sir. It is regarding the reservation. Is there anything about reservation for economically or socially backward students? Any mention about such things in the new education policy?
Socially economic disadvantaged group is the thing that they have used, is the phrase that they have used in the document. Socially economic disadvantaged group of people, they would be assessing the right. For example, for disability, they have set in the document that the reservation thing would be implemented. There is no mention that it would not be implemented as such. There are lots of controversies saying that the minorities is not taken care of, but when you read the document to a great extent, I think they are addressed in a very general manner. There is no particular focus or specific focus given on their reservation as such. That it would be there as such. They assume that it would be there. It's a constitutional thing, constitutional agenda. So there is no problem with that, I think.
Okay. Thank you. There are no more questions raised in the chat box. If there is any question, anybody can ask now.
So, hello, sir. I have a question regarding the vocational training and the degrees associated with it that is mentioned in the new educational policy. What are the directions that the policy looks to go with the new methods in vocational training, and what are the shortcomings in its recommendation?
Regarding vocational training programs, they have taken in the examples of countries like Germany, South Korea, and stuff like that. We tend to see vocational training programs as a kind of indifferent towards status. Means it is considered to be a course that is provided for students who cannot be accommodated in the mainstream or higher education sector. So the kind of demarcation there itself should be rejected. That's what they have actually said in the starting itself. Vocational education will be included in the mainstream education right from school level itself. That is the fun program that they are focusing on, wherein the schools would be encouraged to have local trainers as such, depending upon the local context. For example, you are living in a fishing community, you have the fishermen folk. If you're living in the carpentry community, you have students experiencing that particular vocation to a great extent. So that is quite good in the sense that they get into that profession, they get into that industry. But there is no mention about industries being tied up. There is no MOUs. There's no mention about MOU implementation aspect of that thing. MOUs and for example, when you take the countries like South Korea, the education system has got a kind of collaborative with the industries that is present there. Unfortunately, it might be because we don't have much industries here. There isn't much mention about that particular aspect of implementation. That is the limitation that I see in vocational training uh, program that has been suggested in NEP. And regarding the essence of going to different streams, like if you complete BVOC, there's no mention about the courses provided also. What kind of courses? They're just generally highlighting different kinds of vocational things like carpentry, fishing, architecture, all these things. Even though they talk about these vocational courses, certain vocational courses are also considered under technical education also in this policy. So there is no clear demarcation about technical education and vocational education in this thing. It is quite ambiguous in that sense, right? So that is the limitations here. That is a present limitation of vocational training. Even though they talk much about vocational training, what happens when a vocational graduates and he ultimately gets into UPSC, Public Service Commission? He cannot get into that. There is no mention of that. Into if you have studied BVOC, you need to get into that vocational career itself. So presently, the national education policy talks about orienting your career. While you're doing your career in higher education, it should be oriented towards that particular aspect itself. You cannot turn away from it. That is it.
Okay, sir. So I have another question if you'll have it.
Yes.
So is there any efforts to bring about a kind of employability to the higher education, not just uh, currently it, it is heavily biased towards research, and then there is the possibility of an employability, at least in arts. Is there any effort to bring in employability in right at the start, uh, meaning at the bachelor level or after a master's level?
Employability in the sense that bachelor's level do imply, because we have a bachelor's degree with specialization that is not provided right now. Bachelor's degree with specialization, and there is no mention as such of employability. But regarding research, there is a mention that while doing your PhD, you're supposed to engage in teaching learning process. There should be a course that you should take in teaching students about the research or the specific area of study that you have undertaken. That is there. But regarding employability soon after bachelor's or soon after master's is not actually seen here. There's no mention of that sort.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions?
Sir, I have a
Okay,
question.
sir.
May I ask?
Yes.
I think this national education policy talks about the inclusion of technology in the education system.
Yes.
Is there any mention about how to bridge the gap in the digital divide? Is there any such thing?
No, they have just suggested that they have just acknowledged the fact that there is a digital divide. Even now, there is a digital divide. There is a digital divide in digital competency also with regard to education right now. They have just addressed it, and they have offered kind of research studies and stuff like that in order to cure that particular problem. There is no they have mentioned it. They have mentioned it in the document, but we need to research on those areas. Very few researchers are at present available related to the digital divide in the education sector right now.
Okay, if we are talking about the current state of India, then it's very difficult to implement such things right now. So accessibility is very less in case of for the most of the region. The technology accessibility is not there.
Yeah, the whole policy would work only if we have proper funding, we have proper policy, we have proper programs implemented. So in order to have this online digital competency or digital divide abolished, we need to have this kind of funding and this kind of programs that is involved in establishing such kind of things. So that is the thing. I understand that it is problematic right now, but the problem can be solved. It is not a It is not a problem all the long way.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Are there any other questions?
No questions are raised. Now there is a question.
No, just questions. No, I would also appreciate if there are comments from. I see that some of my teachers also have joined in this program.
Okay, sir. A question. There's a question. What is the philosophical basis of the national education policy? The question is raised by Arati Mena.
Philosophical basis. That's, as I told you, there's no philosophy based on. Philosophy is basically in the vision itself. In the vision, in the sense that it is rooted on Indianness. Now, what is Indianness is a question to be again questioned. So the philosophy of ancient India and the Indianness is basically the structure of the entire production of national education policy.
I think there are no more questions. There are some comments. You might have seen it. Okay.
No, I cannot see that. I have a problem with that.
A comment by Mithali Bhattacharya. All subjects and education has its own philosophy.
One thing I appreciate is they demolished that MPhil thing.
Yeah.
I myself have done MPhil and I've got no use from that. So good, well and good that they demolished. But why are they linking research and assistant professor appointment together? I don't know, because a good researcher needn't be a good teacher, right? What do you feel?
See, research in the sense it's the area of sharing knowledge. That's it. Teaching means it is not meant to be like rote learning is not encouraged here. The education policy doesn't focuses on rote learning, but sharing of knowledge system. Sharing of knowledge system. If you are doing research on a particular area, it is well and good that you just get others to know about what is your area of research, especially the learning community of the country. So in that sense, it's quite okay. Like, as you said, teaching is a skilled based profession. You cannot concentrate on that, but still sharing of knowledge, that's what. So it's just a course that is being provided for PhD entrance. That is also a kind of memory, going back to the memory that after PhD you're going in for teaching profession. That is the inner of the past.
Can I say something, please?
Yes. Who's that?
I'm Mithali.
Yes, Mithali.
Just now I heard ma'am talking about, research and, I mean, you need not be a good teacher for that. Sorry, ma'am, but I don't agree with you. very openly I'm saying, because for whom are you doing the research? You're not doing the research for your own self, right? You are doing the research for the entire crowd of people, crowd of students. And therefore, because the motivation would come from within you while you are teaching students right from the school level to college and to university, and you yourself would have the drive, the motivation that I need to ponder and go down and do a lot of more research so that I can give into the entire subject and then give it to the students for the enrichment of knowledge, not only for myself, but for the entire crowd of students, people. I think I've been able to place myself, sir.
Yes. That's the thing. Just sharing knowledge. It's not teaching, basically. Sharing knowledge.
Yeah, I agree, ma'am. But what I told is not necessary that all who do research are good teachers. That's what I said, because I myself have done postdoctorate and I know what research is and how my knowledge I am able to share to my students. But I feel is when a postgraduate, after completing his net, he should enter employment, okay, rather than doing research, because he has to live. That's what I'm saying. Research can be done even after entering a post. That's what we used to do.
True, ma'am, but the thing is that I'm sorry, a little bit of difference in opinion with you. I'm not arguing, ma'am. Please don't take it otherwise. But I always see around me, and I've been seeing that, a lot of research being done on several subjects and all that. And to me, it occurs that I need to do a lot of research, not only in one particular subject, but in subjects that are actually dire requirement of the need of students. As a teacher, I tell you this. And that is the difference that occurs in my mind, that if we all, as teachers of schools or institutes of college, university, wherever we are, if we do a lot of, what is research after all, we do a lot of findings. So if we do it very seriously, very religiously, then in that case we not only upgrade our own study, but at the same time we are upgrading the entire students of not only the country but of the entire world.
Thank you, ma'am, but I politely disagree, because I still feel that employment comes first.
Yeah.
Of course, you need money, definitely. Otherwise, how do you survive? That is true, ma'am. That's absolutely true. But at the same time, I feel it's so that the employment part, it automatically comes. I'm not talking about government jobs. I am talking about, because I'm a very happy person, no matter how little I'm earning, I'm still happy. But I'm bothered about students. I'm bothered about the world. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was lovely discussing with you and with sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too, and everyone.
Okay, there is another criticism regarding the demolition of MPhil course. That is, it is against the multiple exit option that the very NDC itself offers. What about Daniel sir? And is there anything you have to say about it?
No, I didn't get the question.
The question is, the demolition of MPhil course is against the multiple exit option that the NEP itself offers. That means if someone wants to leave research at a point, he can have MPhil degree in the existing scenario, but policy it is not possible.
Yeah, that is a point that can be not. But you don't take that's a thing. You don't take a PhD to drop it all of a sudden. You take a PhD to complete it. That's the thing. Lots of criticism will be there based on this MPhil exit process, but that is not quite a valid argument. When you're doing a research, you're supposed to complete it. You cannot go off all of a sudden. That multiple exit is offered for students who are actually focusing on doing different graduate and postgraduate programs. Rather for research, it is oriented, I think.
Okay.
Multiple exit is not possible there. You cannot do one year of research in education, the other year of research in science and technology. That's not meaningful.
I have one comment
Hel-
about that.
Yes.
It is very, very difficult to implement such type of programs right now because our educational system is entirely needs to be revamped. Right? Otherwise, it is very difficult to give a certificate in the first year only, because in our system itself now the core subject is it's only one papers only they are offering. Then how we can have such type of a skill for just within a 1 year?
See, that's what I'm saying. Our system itself is not properly going in the correct manner. Our system itself is problematic. We say that our system is choice-based semester system. Are we following choice-based semester system? That's a point that needs to be interrogated. Right. We offer electives, we offer courses that is inclined to the student community, not to the teaching community. But what happens in our institutions, we happen to take whatever is actually not problematic for us. That is the present education system that is there for the past 10 years. That is not a thing that has arisen right now. So when you again say that it cannot be implemented, it means that you're not ready to change. That's a problem again. So we need to revamp the entire education system in such a manner that this kind of system would be established in the future, so that students can have a kind of professional qualification, even if they have 1 year of study or even if they have 2 years of study. I can understand that there will be dropouts in certain this thing. There is a problem of maintaining courses. All these things are problems, but that needs to be researched on. That needs to be focused on. Pilot studies should be done. You cannot implement all of a sudden. You cannot implement it maybe next year or maybe 2 years after. It takes a huge time. That is the only thing. Education system should be modified accordingly.
Okay. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Danish, I'm very happy to listen to you. I was there right from the beginning. It was a wonderful presentation. You have presented the complicated content of NEP 2020 in a very lucid manner. First of all, I would like to congratulate you. And I have a very, I have a question to ask. What about the 4-year integrated B.Ed course which is suggested in NEP 2020? And it is said that by 2030, the people who have completed the 4-year integrated B.Ed would actually be doing really well in education system. So I'm just concerned about the people who have done the other B.Ed, like 1-year B.Ed course and 2-year B.Ed course. What is the job opportunity of these people? Have you thought about it?
Yeah, 4-year B.Ed integrated program is actually a kind of program wherein you have a discipline that is specialized, that is the degree, the bachelor's degree that you're doing right now, plus the B.Ed program, integrated program, just like we have integrated PG program, B.Ed, BA, MA programs, 5-year integrated programs right now. So it doesn't make a huge difference, like when you completed 3 years B.Ed degree, BA degree program, and you have 2-year B.Ed degree program, or you have completed 4-year BA degree program and you have 1-year BA degree program. It is equivalent to the 4-year BA integrated program. So it will not make a huge difference as such, because you are learning both.
No, like my question is here. It's mentioned in NEP that it will become the minimal degree qualification for school teachers. So that's been stated. So what about the people who have already done their B.Ed? So will they have some sort of bridge program or like?
There's no
So earlier,
mention as this. There's no mention as such that it would be the 4-year integrated program would be the minimal qualification.
yeah,
for
it's there. It's mentioned. If I'm not wrong, it's in mentioned in page number 42 of 15.5. It's stated in the NEP 2020. So I was just concerned about those students of mine who have completed their B.Ed program and looking forward to job opportunities. Earlier, this kind of problem was there when we moved from the year system to semester system, where the first rank holder in the year system would be acquiring 60% of mark. But now in the semester system, we can find students even in English language and literature acquiring more than 90%. So this, what to say, placement problem
that's
would
a
be
concern.
there. But that's a
concern.
concern. That's a concern. Yeah.
That's
Okay. Just anyway, it was a wonderful presentation, Danish. Thank you for taking pains of arranging this kind of a program. Okay.
Thank you. I think there are no more questions. Let us wind up the session. Thank you all for participating in this webinar. Now I invite Dr. Sophia Rajan to propose vote of thanks for this session.
Hello, welcome all. I, on behalf of Government Arts and Science College, would like to officially thank all the participants who attended, especially Mithali ma'am, because it was a bit challenging discussion. Things come very nicely when you have a nice discourse. So thank all of you on behalf of me as well as my whole college. It being a very small college with very little facilities, but all the faculty members are so encouraging, and the IQAC team is so effective that it could organize such an informative session. Once again, thank you, Danish sir. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's wind up the session. Before that, I would like to thank Shahid sir, who is behind the curtain. He is doing the technical facilities for this webinar. Thank you, Shahid sir and Danish sir, once again. Thank you all.